Big news! Wayfair's tax refund sale is on now. Right now through March 2nd, you can score up to 70% off furniture, decor, appliances, rugs, and more. With fast and easy shipping straight to your door. Plus, amazing flash deals. Shop Wayfair's tax refund sale now to make the most of your refund with huge savings through March 2nd at wayfair.com.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Some people do fear and hate trans people and don't understand it. They feel that their gender or their family formation is potentially threatened if gender is complex or if sex itself can be reassigned. It's not God-given or it's not immutably given at birth. But more than that, there are a set of associations that have become connected by and in and through transphobia. If you're anti-trans, it means that you're for a certain idea of the family that is nuclear and monogamous and generally white, and you want the whole social structure that goes with that. So it's not just like this small minority, less than 1%, is like trouble. It's like the trouble is in the whole conceptual reorientation towards society. And they know that. They know that.
This was like a brush with someone so truly aspirational to me. I was just kind of like tickled the entire time. I honestly was just asking questions, not even like thematically. I was just like, do you do yoga? It was just like full fanboy situation.
Yes.
Like, me too. Which yoga do you like? But like, I've thought about this interview so many times since doing it. It was honestly, it felt kind of like Make-A-Wish kind of situation.
Are you dying? Like, what? What's up? No, truly though, like, if there's anyone that we were going to have on the podcast about gender, I think fucking Judith Butler.
Yeah.
I don't know if we can. It's like, I think we got to end the show, you guys. I think this is it.
I honestly considered it. I was like, do we just hard pivot to like a sports podcast after this? It was just such a absolute pleasure.
You were nervous. It was
They were
cute.
just like so cool.
It was really cute to see. I don't think I ever see you like flustered because it's like you do this for a living. But like you kind of had this like look in your eyes. And then we talked about like how much this person kind of like means to you, you know, as like a model for how to like move through the world. And like, you know, what you said about like talking to like an educator, I feel like that's been a theme this season. We've talked to a lot of educators, and there's a way that when you interview educators, like I feel very held. Like I felt this with Cass, I felt this with Erica and Ebony. Like I felt like I was also being held through this interview, and like they were kind of guiding us, like, you know, when maybe we were like a little nervous.
What do you think that is? What do you think that shift is?
I think when you like practice and are able to like speak publicly and actually kind of get out of your head of just like, I am speaking, I'm nervous, and you're actually able to like think about the people that you are speaking to and kind of like their needs. And like as an educator, you're always like speaking with the intent. If you're a good educator, you're thinking about how people are going to like receive what you're talking about and like meeting them where they're at. It felt like all the interviews with educators, like they were meeting us where we were at in a way that felt like just like so lovely. And I think that's like what a good educator is, you know?
Yeah, it's kind of like calling in kind of a feeling like, here, let's start with what you're asking. Let's like really spend some time there.
Exactly. You know, they've done like a bunch of press, obviously, for like this book, which we chat with them about, that they released last year. But I feel like what was different about this interview was like they got like personal.
Yeah.
You know, we saw, I think, Professor Butler, the academic, but also like, I think because some of the questions you were asking in like this moment in your life, Allie, like we saw like Judith, like the parent.
Totally.
You know, like someone who has like a wife and like a son. And also someone, I think for me, who's like thinking really critically about this like political moment that we're in a way that just felt like so validating and helpful in just like so many ways. So
yeah, I think this interview really benefited from being a year too late after the book had been released because we weren't a part of a book tour in any timely way. So we were like full chatting.
Exactly.
So
no, I think that gave us a certain freedom to like just be like, let's just talk about whatever.
I hope people listen to this because this is coming out mid-December. So I hope people listen to this on their rides home to be surrounded by family, which can be a particularly hard time. And I hope that people read the book. The book is incredible.
And again, that book is Who's Afraid of Gender, which came out in 2024.
Yeah.
I just want to give one final shout out to one of my advisors who helped make this interview possible, Professor Lisa Lowe. Thank you so much, Lisa, for connecting us with Professor Butler.
Huge.
And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this amazing interview.
I'm Judith Butler. I've been teaching at the University of California at Berkeley for a long time. I'm technically retired and then recalled, which is a very complex thing because I hold a grant there trying to develop a counter-imaginary in authoritarian times. And so I'm really interested these days in academics and artists and activists all getting together to talk about how we not only regenerate ourselves, but what kind of world and life do we want to be generating through our practices and our visions? And I find it really helpful to move between those boundaries, and I feel more alive moving among those different fields.
Cool.
I feel like that's a question we like think about a lot on this podcast.
Yeah, totally. When you're rejecting something, what are you replacing it with, and how can imagination get us there?
And how are we already practicing in life in certain ways together that imply a certain vision of how we want the world to be? We don't always know what that vision is.
Yeah.
Or maybe we can't state it. We know like what we're doing is the way we want to live, but can we then take the next step and say, you know, folks, life should be organized in the following way.
Right.
Or this is what I want to see materialized in the world. So trying to figure out how you generate vision these days without it becoming like a quick and dispensable meme or, you know, something that would take hold in people's practices and bring us together during times when a lot of us are at risk of some pretty profound despair.
Are these artists and organizers mostly in the Bay, or is it like a national like coalition?
Well, there's a Bay Area group.
Okay.
We've certainly come together with arts institutions there, but we're also working with Bill T. Jones here in New York. I'm in New York right now.
Okay.
We're working with the Smart Museum in Chicago. We're working with the Contemporary in Austin. But we're also working with academics who are thinking about censorship and authoritarianism and aesthetics. And yeah, we have some global allies as well.
Oh, that's really cool. I didn't know about that project. Okay, so this is a question that we ask everybody. It comes like it's a little abrupt sometimes, so just fair warning. But could you tell us a bit about your relationship to gender and how you've come to embody your current gender identity and expression today?
I feel like this is like Saturday Night Live or something. Like, oh, let's ask Judith Butler about their gender. I'm sorry, I have to get out of the irony of the situation.
No, it's funny. It's objectively funny.
Okay, but it is objectively funny. Look, the truth of the matter is, and in this way, I'm not very contemporary, or maybe I am. I have no idea. I mean, first of all, you have to understand I'm turning 70 this year. So that means that, wow, I've had like a struggle with gender since I was a kid. And I didn't really fit. My parents had difficulty with my nonconformity, and there wasn't really language for it. There was language for my sexuality after the age of about 14, only because there were medical books or Sappho's poetry, but there was no movement I was part of. So I was clearly a lesbian. There was no question about that. Maybe somewhere between 14 and 16, that stabilized. But gender, I just kind of stayed out of it. You know, I mean, I knew that I had to check a box for various reasons. So I just I just checked, but what did I feel? What spoke to me? What was language that worked for me? I have to say, I've always had a certain kind of distance from the categories. And it doesn't mean I live nowhere. And if I identify as non-binary, as I do, that doesn't mean that, I have like a substantive idea of what it is to be non-binary, and I'm going to tell you what it is. I have no idea. Because the generalizations, it's like that's a way of marking myself in a way that, okay, that works. I thought for most of my life, actually, that, I was just kind of detached and living my gender as I could. I was non-conforming. I was disidentified, right? Like I didn't have identity, but it allowed me to think about identities. And I certainly respect enormously people who have them and claim them and elaborate them in whatever way they need. And that's all good, right? But I'm like an engaged ethnographer in a way in the field of gender, because it's like, I have no idea.
Wow.
So the truth is I'm kind of permanently disoriented about gender, which gives me maybe a critical perspective. I do like non-binary. It feels like it named the interval in which I live. Like when I criticized the binary character of gender, right? It's like, okay, then what's next or what more? And I didn't really know many years ago what to say about that. I said, proliferate or see what happens, experimental, etc. Find language, find idioms, find media, whatever it is you need. But I think non-binary is a way of my saying, I'm critical of that binary, and I still am, and it still gets reproduced wherever I go. It's so relentless. Some folks like the binary, and some trans folks like the binary.
Yeah.
It's like,
feel very comfortable in it.
Inside. And that's cool. That's great. That's good. They should live well inside the binary. But you can't then say everybody should live well inside the binary, or that's the only way of living well. And most trans people are going to be open to whatever other people need to do, or at least I would hope so. But yeah, I think that's a deeply unsatisfying answer, but it's all I've got.
No, I mean,
I love it. Yeah.
I think that's kind of where me and Allie are at in some ways as well. We're like, we also feel very disoriented by gender. And we started this podcast because we were like, okay, how are other people grappling with this? And now we've seen like so many examples of it. But I think we both identify as non-binary because we're like, yeah, I guess this works for right now.
Yeah, this was actually originally going to be a podcast about masculinity from a trans point of view.
I see.
And we've still gotten there, but yeah, it's been really interesting. And I think some of my favorite answers are ones that are like still in process in that same kind of way. Like, this works great for right now.
And don't get me wrong, when it became possible for me to change my civil status in California, and I saw that there was this option to check non-binary, I thought, well, of course I'm going to do that. Of course I'm going to. Like, yay, good. I'm so glad somebody made that. Yeah. Maybe I'm part of the team that made that.
Yeah, probably.
So might as well check the box, because this is part of our, we struggled to make this, right? We all worked hard in our own different venues, the whole movement. And so, so I was glad to check that. I was super glad.
Yeah, best feeling ever.
And I'm angry. I'm angry now. Well, right now my passport is okay because of the ACLU lawsuit, but I was pretty angry when they were telling me my passport wasn't authorized because it's got an X rather than an M or F.
So crazy. I still have the F passport, but having the X on a license was a really great feeling. So there are times when I'm kind of like cavalier about it, like non-binary, it's fine, but I got that and I felt true elation.
Like, no, that's great.
Yes, card carrying.
Yes.
I feel like you cover a lot of like heavy topics, and I'm curious, like authoritarianism, the rise, and just our rights being squashed in front of our very eyes. Is there anyone that you read or that you listen to that kind of helps you mentally through like these like worrying times?
Yes, I think there are a number of people I read. I always read Arundhati Roy. That surprises people. I always read Naomi Klein. Sometimes agree with her, sometimes don't, but always get something from her. I read Palestinian poets like Fadi Judah. I'm deeply moved by him. He changes my thinking every time I read him.
Wow.
I mean, you got to be really grateful to somebody who does that. I read around, it's not like there's a single author I follow. It's like I need to see like the whole range of views that people are focusing on. Like they're the folks who are just it's all about capitalism, or they're folks that are, it's all about racism, or they're people in different corners who think they've got it down with their frameworks. And I like to see how those frameworks either overlap or confront each other or fail to confront each other, because I think we need a huge range of perspectives in order to grasp what's happening in our world.
Yeah.
Like climate destruction and trans rights, like genocide in Palestine and the decimation of reproductive rights. I mean, how are we linking this? I think Veronica Gago is somebody who links things. I think Ruthie Gilmore is somebody who links things. And, they're synoptic, they're trying to hold a lot of things together at the same time. So that kind of thinking is really helpful to me.
Yeah, totally. I really appreciate that kind of macro view that you have on it. Are there any embodiment practices that you participate in, or is there things that bring you back to your body that you're a fan of? Yeah,
I practice Iyengar yoga, at least when I'm on the West Coast. I have a class probably 2 or 3 times a week. I do a lot of it on my own. I also swim every day, and that's an incredible breathing, moving thing that helps me enormously. I definitely don't know what gender I am when I'm swimming. That's for sure. I'm just like, and then, I walk. It's important for me to breathe. There's also some pranayama exercises that I do, when I can't sleep, and breath work has become important for my equanimity as a person. So, yeah, I'm a somatic kind of creature.
Cool. That's awesome.
I love that. So obviously you are an academic, but your last book, Who's Afraid of Gender, was a bestseller, but also kind of like a trade book in a sense that it was reaching kind of wider audiences beyond the academy to much acclaim. I'm curious, what made you decide that you kind of wanted to write more of a trade book? And also as you were writing, if you had to kind of tweak or check some of your more academic impulses, if that makes sense.
For sure. Well, maybe you know the story. I tell it actually in the acknowledgments, but maybe I should have told it on the first page, that when I was in Brazil about, 7 years ago, right before Bolsonaro came to power, there were right-wing Christians who had gathered outside a conference where I was participating, and they were yelling that I should leave the country and that I was a pedophile, and they burnt me in effigy. They had a big poster of me with kind of wild red eyes, and they burnt that. It was like a poster puppet. It was also oddly gendered, it was wearing a pink bikini. Why?
Right.
If that was trans, then that assumes that for me to wear a pink bikini would betray my true masculinity. So I was kind of flattered, they got it, that's right. You're never going to be seeing me in that. You want to hurt my feelings. You're going to put me in
totally.
that.
I would never wear that. That is insulting.
I would rather die than wear that. So they kind of knew,
they kind of got it.
But it was funny, right? Because they were against it, but they were also doing it, which I've seen before, right-wing kind of appropriations of drag or of certain motifs that are generally considered, I don't know, on the left or progressive side of things.
There's that one politician that has dressed as a woman and makes TikToks about it. And everyone is in the comments, you seem to really enjoy this. Maybe you should, you might be trans.
Yeah.
But it's so interesting. Yeah.
Well, it's a strange embodiment, really. Anyway, it was terrifying, and I had to have security. And then at the airport, there was a group of women, with these baggage carts that attacked me and my partner, and they came at us physically. And I barely escaped up an escalator to the security checkpoint. And some young man came out from a store and saw this big woman coming at me with one of those metal carts. And he wrestled her to the ground and stopped her.
Holy shit.
I was pretty freaked out. So I just thought to myself, I have to figure out who these people are and what's going on. And I had friends in France and Belgium and in Latin America who were working on the anti-gender ideology movement for many years, since the 90s. And I kind of participated and I listened and I, did what I could to help, but it wasn't my focus. But I was periodically singled out. And then in Brazil, I was threatened. And I just decided I have to figure out what is moving these people. What are they after? What are they thinking? So, I'm not trained as a sociologist or an anthropologist, so I couldn't really do that in a way that a good academic could. But I did have a lived experience and I did have contact, especially through my translators, with people in several parts of the world who were dealing with this, in East Asia, in several parts of Europe, throughout Latin America. And it became interesting and alarming to me to see the global dimensions of this movement and also to see how it entered American politics, U.S. politics, that is, kind of belatedly. It had been raging elsewhere for a really long time. And then suddenly, through the World Congress of the Families and also the Republican Party conferences where they would invite Orban, the CPAC conferences, it became part not just of a religious right, but of a U.S. right-wing movement that sought to naturalize the family as heterosexual, to restore men to their proper place. They were also opposing abortion. They were also opposing queer family rights and gay marriage and, a whole cluster of things. They were also clearly racist and anti-immigrant. So kind of defending the American family was also very much defending a border and defending a certain pure notion of a white and heteronormative family. So there were a lot of issues that were linked. And I think we saw it in the Trump campaign where the anti-immigrant hatred and transphobia came together in various pitches that the Republican Party made. And so I felt like I needed to understand what happened, not just because I was traumatized, but because I thought this is not just about me. This is about something much bigger than me. So sometimes you have to take what impinges on you personally and give it the broader picture.
Yeah, you've talked a lot about how these phantasms of trans people and migrant people are made under our current religious and authoritarian regimes. Can you talk a little bit more about this kind of looming specter of gender variant folks and how it functions in the conservative right worldwide?
Well, let me say this, that at the time I was writing the book, Who's Afraid of Gender, I was interested in kind of rising fascism or rising authoritarianism, and I was trying to put that together in a hasty way, suggesting there were fascist passions that were helping to establish authoritarian regimes. And most of those regimes, or almost all of them, are pro-heteronormative family and were against gay and lesbian parenting or against changing gender status, against trans people, having children, forming families, being able to have legal rights or having rights to appropriate health care, trans kids or gender nonconforming kids or gender disoriented kids like me, trying to find counseling or trying to get some basic medications to, address their issues. All of these issues were really crucial. And, something very peculiar happened, which was those of us who were part of, I think it's fair to say, liberation struggles, we want to be free to live without fear. We want to be free to live with good healthcare. We want to be free to cross the border without somebody stopping us for racist or homophobic or transphobic reasons. We want to be free to live, to have children and not to have children as we need to, as is right for our lives, right? So we were all about freedom in some ways, or at least in our own mind, but we got recast as the censors and as the totalitarians who are going to take the kids of conservative families and teach them how to be gay, or teach them how to be trans, or insist that they become trans, or demand that they have certain political viewpoints, which they have to rehearse verbatim in order to pass some kind of political litmus test. So we became the embodiment of censorship and totalitarianism. But then once they were able to accomplish that at the ideological level, the right then became authoritarian, which is different, but authoritarian in the sense that it started to amass state power, especially state powers to restrict people's freedoms, to strip them of rights, to invoke state power to abduct and deport students on international visas, to criminalize Palestinian support as if all support for Palestinian lives or Palestinian freedoms is terrorism. So what we're actually seeing is the amassing of state power in a way that my book could not have foreseen.
Wow. And it's only been a year.
Yeah, I was like saying, folks, this is going in an authoritarian direction. This was before Trump was elected.
Before Project 2025.
But I saw it in the global domain, especially if you look at Orban or you look at Milei in Argentina, you look at Erdogan in Turkey, although he plays a tricky game. You know, you see these really strong authoritarian figures who are just putting the opposition in jail or stripping people of rights or going against constitutional rights or shredding them, setting them aside, invoking state power, security, whatever, nationalism to do what they please. So I had no way of understanding just how intense that would be. But, you know, for a power like that to take hold without a popular revolution, it has to persuade people that it's keeping them from certain kinds of harms. And the left is now spectralized or made into a kind of phantasm of harm, of control, of indoctrination, of pedophilia, right? I was so confused. Like, why would I be a pedophile again? Like, on what basis?
Yeah.
And I presume that it's either all gay and lesbian people are pedophile, maybe, or teaching children. I do think children should be taught about gender and be free to experiment and find their own way and not be hampered by people's judgments or pathologization. Like, does that mean that I am in favor of adults molesting children? No, I'm not in favor of that. I've never been in favor of that. But if you take my point of view and you say this is doctrine and it's indoctrination, and if it's being taught in schools or universities, it's indoctrinating, converting, and seducing young people, then it is a form of doing harm to children. Of course, the terrible irony of that is that the worst thing you can do to children is deprive them of appropriate health care and a fucking good education. Right? In which they understand the complexity of human life and are able to find an informed way through it to decide how best to live and what to struggle for and what values to preserve. I mean, open inquiry.
Totally. And it's also crazy that we say like seducing, indoctrinate. Like, I grew up incredibly religious. I went to college to be a pastor. Like, I went to a church that was like electric guitar, giant bounce house in the front, like free food, bring your whole family, like flyers with cartoons on. I'm like
that's
that
indoctrination.
is the indoctrination you're like you're having your base worry about. It's like, how dare you indoctrinate back at me or something like that. It's I love the reframing of this as saying that they are anti-gender, because I think it's putting the impetus back on them. We're just bringing up a freedom, and then it's their reaction that is the backlash.
Well, they rename a freedom struggle as harm. Well, and sometimes theologically they say that we're stealing God's power. Like, God created us male and female, and we think we can create ourselves in our own image. And what kind of crazy human narcissism trespass is that? This is God's power. We are given this, right? Gender is, or sex rather, is a kind of gift from God. And we're like, we think.
That pink bikini was a gift from God.
Yeah, that was a
dare
gift.
you not accept.
But Allie, where was this church that you're describing?
Southern California. So
Southern
kind of
California.
inland Southern California, kind of agricultural area.
Right. But, it's really important to think about those churches because a lot of big churches are providing social services that governments no longer provide.
Yes,
right.
That was the
saying, we're going to educate your kid. We're going to give you that free food. We're going to give you transport to medical care when you need it. Totally. You have a community to which you belong, whether you're employed or not employed. You're always welcome here. Open door.
Built-in child care, trips
Everything.
To a snowboarding trip I never would have been able to go on.
I mean, we can find churches like this on several continents, apostolic and colonial, coming out of colonial traditions, really, that are filling in when government services are no longer funded, right? So this is where that neoliberal decimation of social services comes together with family values and with anti-gender ideology. And that's an important constellation to keep in mind.
Totally. It's interesting to me how, the most anti-socialist people ever are benefiting so much from military socialist programs of affordable housing and healthcare. And if you're in the military, you can get all of these things that we're asking for everyone to have, but it almost feels like this kind of hyper-conservative right has those things through their church, through joining the military, through hyper-nationalism. And that's why we can't persuade them. But we're you don't have to fight in the military to get those things. That's what we're offering. But yeah, anyway, that's an aside.
It's a big aside, by the way. It's huge. It's huge because people do want social services of that kind, and they think they should be able to live in such a way that they have access to education and healthcare and transport and a reasonable income and childcare, all of it, right? I mean, you could say that they are social services outside the socialist frame, or you could say they're social services that could, under other circumstances, prefigure a form of socialism that people could get onto. But the minute you say socialism, then comes totalitarianism, right? Because the only possible socialism is state Marxism of the totalitarian kind, and then but we do have people, who are contesting that really actively right now. And I think there's an active interest in democratic socialism and socialist values and ideals. And this is a moment where all that's being kind of imagined anew.
Yeah. It was so interesting with Zorhan's race, for example, where it's I think the brilliance of his social media campaign and campaigning in general is just saying things very clearly, but not saying the word socialism. So free healthcare, free buses. And it's he was just saying things so plainly in a way that appealed to people en masse. Because it's just of course we want free childcare. Of course we want free healthcare, free buses. Yeah, I just thought it was very, very smart on his part.
It's true. But he also gave us a model of how to talk to people who voted for Trump, right? Because there are a lot of us on the left, I don't talk to those people. I don't go to those states. I don't talk to those people. It's we do talk to them all the time, we have social interactions with them. We may or may not know that those are Trumpists, but we do. But he was just so if I told you I would offer you affordable housing, would that interest you in my candidate? And he's yeah, I would. Because how many people in New York City are really angry about the price of housing? Just about everybody, except those who are profiting from that.
Totally.
It was a model of how you can draw out, a possible socialist sympathy from somebody who ostensibly opposes you and get them to think about, through the concrete issues, get them to think about what they need and what they want, rather than immediately catapulting into words like socialism that, will freak them out, and a lot of phantasmatic issues.
Images come up,
which are very different from oh my God, healthcare for my kid,
Exactly.
Totally.
Do you think and I guess I'm thinking here specifically about queer and trans people, like as a group, we represent an actual like threat to like the aims of this regime? Or do you think that like we are truly just like functioning as like a scapegoat for the advancement of this regime? Because like sometimes I'm like, trans people are 1% of the population. Like, are you guys really that afraid about like everyone becoming trans? Or it's like, are you completely lying and that's just like a fake fear and you're just using us like as like a scapegoat? Or is it both? Because then I'm like, how many people have read Judith Butler and maybe realize that they're queer? Like, is that the fear, right? Like, is that the anxiety?
Interesting. Well, I want to say both. All right. I think that some people, many apparently people who were inspired by transphobia in the election and continue to be excited by it, they do fear and hate trans people and don't understand it. They feel that their gender or their family formation is potentially threatened. If gender is complex or if sex itself can be reassigned, it's not God-given or it's not immutably given at birth. But more than that, there are a set of associations that have become connected by and in and through transphobia. So if you're anti-trans, it means that you're for a certain idea of the family that is nuclear and monogamous and generally white or white inflected by heteronormative white norms and colonial norms, depending what part of the world we're really talking about. And you want the whole social structure that goes with that. You want the social place, the social recognition, the deep sense that your own sex is what it is and couldn't possibly be anything other than that. And anybody who says that that could be changed in time or that it's not right, those folks are destabilizing a whole set of social structures. So family, church, society, patriarchal assumptions with which we all live, white supremacist assumptions with which we all live. There's a lot about kinship that cannot be looked squarely in the face until you start to rethink, okay, what is the relationship between a sex assigned at birth, the way we live that particularly assigned body, perhaps it elects for reassignment or it exceeds that assignment or defies that assignment? Like, who are we in families? Who are we in schools? Who are we in churches and synagogues and mosques? How do all those institutions depend on a certain kind of unthought stability of natal sex that is being radically challenged right now, even if by a radical minority? It's the conceptual and the social challenge that shakes institutions, as we know, including medical ones and educational ones, which is where the crackdowns are coming. We're seeing gender studies programs close. We're seeing people not being able to get grants if they use certain language. You know, they're trying actually to decimate an entire way of thought. So it's not just like this small minority, less than 1%, is like trouble. It's like the trouble is in the whole conceptual reorientation towards society. And they know that. They know that.
It's interesting, too, that there is this kind of like anti-intellectual push, or I'm not totally sure where it starts. I'm like, do they feel talked down to by intellectuals or people in like higher ed? And then that's where like the reaction comes from. I'm not totally sure.
Well, we have reason to be really critical of how elite higher education has become, right? I mean, why is it so expensive and unaffordable? Why isn't it understood as a public good that we should all have? Right. That every living person, you know, regardless of documentation, should have an excellent education, and that should be a priority in society. So we've produced, as a capitalist-driven society, we've produced education as this luxury good when it actually is a precondition of democracy itself, and as such should be accessible and affordable to every person. But how do you turn a right-wing Christian elitism when it comes to education? How do you turn that into like an analysis of class structure
Yes,
within
yes.
capitalism, which has lost sight of what the fundamental public goods are in this world?
Totally.
And is
Exactly.
decimating them, is actively decimating them, including the environment.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So I'm kind of in this moment of like, I'm like in my 5th year in this program at Yale. Like, what do I want to do? You know, it feels like the academy is crumbling. Do you have any advice for navigating the academy in this contemporary moment? Like, I'm looking very like pragmatically, where it's like with so few jobs and then also this like targeting of any sort of study of race. Like, is it maybe time to jump ship? Like, have you ever seen anything like this before or in the academy? Like,
I've
that
never
kind of
seen
thing?
anything like it before.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like it before. But I don't think a life decision like staying in the academy or leaving the academy should be based on what's happening right now. I think what you have to find is the work that is most important to you, that you want to wake up to every morning, the work that draws you in, that you really want to think about. You want to stay close to these texts, these images, these films, whatever it is, this music, this history. You just do that work. And as you need, you engage socially, politically, but you ground yourself in that work. Because if that work does turn out to be grounded, important, speaks from you, about you, and gives you a way to enter the academy with your own contribution, that's your best chance of getting a job under these conditions. And, you know, the world could be different in 4 years. It could be much worse, or it could have taken a sudden turn.
Right.
So I would not immediately jump ship if something in you says, I love doing this kind of work. I want to stay here. I mean, that said, great intellectual work does not always happen inside the academy.
Totally.
You know, and sometimes the academy can stifle us in ways that make it necessary to leave. So there are good reasons to leave when you have to, sometimes really excellent reasons. But if you've got a passion for a certain kind of scholarly work, you should stay with it. That's my view.
You've been on a tour of some of the craziest corners of YouTube. I've found you talking to very interesting people about the manosphere. I'm very curious what your experience of your book tour was in talking to a bunch of different people, and what kind of prompted that, or like how you found the strength to have conversations with people that might not fully agree with you.
That was hard. And that goes back to Babette's question, which I didn't quite answer, about whether I had to check myself in trying to write for a broader audience. I'm not sure I really crossed over. I crossed over some. You know, maybe it was on a couple lists briefly. They call it a bestseller, but I don't think I really crossed over hugely. So, and it was hard for me not to go further, say, into the history of ideology or the psychoanalytic idea of phantasm. Like, you know, I could do 2 books on that. Like, that's my stuff. You know, that's like that's where I play. That's where I go.
Yeah.
You know, so that felt, you know, if it had been my student, I would have circled. It's like, you got to go deeper. You have to say this.
Right.
But no, I couldn't go deeper. I understood. And even some of the translations, do you think we could take out this paragraph about the phantasm? No, you cannot take out that paragraph. But
That paragraph is all I have.
yes.
Yeah.
But I guess what I would say is I did try to put myself in some uncomfortable positions. I talked to David Remnick at the New Yorker, and he sort of jumped me on the question of Palestine. You know, was I or was I not Hamas? Well, I'm not Hamas.
Whoa.
I've never been Hamas. I've said some descriptive things about what I think Hamas is doing, and then people say, "Oh, you know, Butler must be Hamas." But that's happening to a lot of people now.
Yeah.
Like Miss Rachel.
Oh my God, it's unbelievable.
Like a kid's entertainer. It's like, okay.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. But or I went to Florida. I went to the New College after it had destroyed its gender studies program famously. And I offered support to the students there and the remaining faculty. And I gave them a lecture, and they were Trumpists in the first 3 rows, because it's all, that entire college is now basically run administratively through Florida state appointees that reflect a Trump sympathetic agenda. And that was really hard. I was afraid. I was alone. I didn't take anyone with me. But it worked out fine. And I see that there were folks in Florida, let's remember 43% voted for the other candidate, not Trump. And that was important. I got the pushback, and I saw, that they were listening, and then it was like trans women in prison, trans women in women's bathrooms. It's like, and then their sexual terror came up, like as if the major rapists in our world are trans women, or as if the statistics in prison don't show clearly that it's guards who are the ones who commit acts of sexual violence against women. You just saw that, their faces change and just terror, and so for them, those kinds of examples, those kinds of figures or phantasms, that was the most emotional moment, and their view on trans is decided by that moment. And trying to talk to them and bring them out of that was really, really hard. And I just saw how difficult it was, but I was glad I did it. I've been uncomfortable in a lot of those interviews, but I figured I need to get out of my bubble and, see what it's like and see if I can reach people. I feel like we all feel pretty defeated right now, but we just have to keep going in the ways that we know how and offer each other support so we can regenerate ourselves for a long-term struggle.
Totally.
So you obviously pull from so many fields and schools of thought in your work, but even kind of in your description now of seeing kind of this psychic terror on the faces of some of the people that you were lecturing to, I do feel you pull so much from psychoanalysis and so many French and German thinkers. So I guess I was just wondering, when did your interest in psychoanalysis begin? Have you always been into it? Were you into it in grad school?
Well, I was sent to a psychoanalytically trained psychiatrist when my parents discovered that I was having a sexual relationship with a girl. And I think I was supposed to get fixed. But this guy turned out to be a really lovely person who taught me how to read symptoms, because suddenly my skin was I had all these problems that only I could see or feel and nobody could find them. And so I was somatizing, and he kind of taught me how to read a symptom. And I thought, oh, that is so cool. Can you do that more generally? And anyway, he ended up dismissing me, wishing me well, told me I was lucky I could love anyone at all, and suggested that maybe my mother should come in. I love that.
Right.
Anyway, but for me, psychoanalysis was, from the age of 14, kind of queer affirmative, kind of imaginative, interpretive, thoughtful, helped me get through really painful, enigmatic times. So it's been part of my life way before it became an academic discipline.
Wow.
That's so cool.
That's so interesting. So Allie's having a baby. Their partner's literally about to give birth in the next week. Their due date was yesterday.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So my partner and I found out that we're having a boy. I want to say, I don't believe in gender. It doesn't matter. But I had a strong reaction to it. And I was curious. I know that you have a son. What was that like for you? Was there a moment of kind of, I know that gender functions so strongly in society and I will have to come into contact with that in a parental role? Or what did that feel like for you?
I think the initial moment of learning that our child was a boy was actually disconcerting to me. And I had a string of responses that came out of who knows what, early childhood, relations to my brother, fear, anxiety. I had a string of, nearly kind of hallucinatory responses to the initial. But, you don't actually know this creature at that moment. You're just gender.
Yes.
And, gender is the kind of thing that freaks people out. It's
Right.
You say boy, and it's duh, all these things start coming out, huge metonymic chains of anxiety, fear, wish, memory, all kinds of stuff. So, I got through that pretty quickly, especially once the kid comes into the world. Then it's like, I mean, he's a big guy. He's got muscles and everything. He's 30 years old. And I always remind him that he slept right here. He fit here and he slept here the first night because I let my partner sleep. And I was just like, but, the minute I had bodily contact with this creature and I started to form my relationship to him and connect with him and care for him, and his very being was at the center of my concern and love. I mean,
I'm going to start crying.
No, you see what's phantasmatic. But the thing is, you do have to teach your kid about gender.
Right.
It's like you do, because, it's like saying, I don't believe in race. It's not the exact analogy, of course. But no, this is a gendered world, and they're going to have to negotiate their way.
It's material.
So just pretending like there is none or it doesn't matter, that's not helpful.
Totally.
That's like lack of preparation. That is lack of preparation. So there are ways to accompany, to talk about those things. And we did. We had a joyful, funny way of talking about gender. And he still jokes with me, or he finds something I say, and says to me, that's a little bit homophobic, don't you think? Or, calls me out. Like, it's all good. It's all good. But, there are new kinds of boys and men being produced in this world now.
Yeah.
My kid, he's 30, but I see the cohort that he hangs with, and it's like, look at the decency and creativity among these people. I don't remember that from my childhood, and I also don't remember it from even 20 years ago. So there have been some crucial changes, and you'll see it changes you. And you get to see how much of your own cultural and psychic stuff gets kind of shaken up. It's a good undoing.
Yeah. Oh gosh,
Allie, you're just on the verge of tears always these days.
No, it's hard work. It's hard work, and there's psychic struggle, and we know this, that being a parent, it's like, whoa, you got to check your narcissism. You got to find out who this other creature is and what it needs and where you're supposed to stand in relationship to them.
Totally.
Yeah. It's like, oh my goodness.
Totally.
It's an exhausting choreography. Well worth it.
Definitely.
Beautiful baby coming any day now. Literally any day, any second.
Truly any second. I actually need to go check on her.
I know.
I think you do. This is sweet. It's kind of very sweetly personal. I appreciate the two of you and Ira as well, and everybody kind of gathering, and just, we're just here, as people talking, and I like that. It's great.
We're chit-chatting.
Yeah, it's good. I like it. All right,
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to Judith Butler. This was a true dream and one of my favorite episodes we've ever done.
You can find their book, Who's Afraid of Gender, linked in the show notes.
Gender Spiral is an original podcast from Audiation. This episode was mixed by Matt Noble. Theme music is composed by Chanel Kirchlow, remixed by Daria Lord. Additional music by Command Jasmine, courtesy of Molten Heart, with art by Joey Hahn and graphics by Michael Tyrone Delaney.
The show is executive produced by Ireland Meacham, myself, Babette Thomas, and my co-host Allie Beardsley, along with Sandy Smullins, with some additional story editing from Susie Armitage.
If you want to help us out, you can rate or review us wherever you're listening to us right now, and follow us on Instagram at Gender Spiral to get notified about new episodes.
And be sure to support us on Patreon at patreon.com/Gender Spiral Podcast. For $2 a month, you can listen to the entire back catalog of Gender Spiral episodes ad-free. Plus, you can get access to our Discord community. Higher tiers will get you exclusive bonus content, plus gifts from us like these cute little monthly postcards and free merch.
You can also check us out at genderspiralpod.com, where you'll find transcripts for each episode and a link to leave us a voicemail. And you can shop our merch store.